Dr. Jam performers recovering this morning from injuries he suffered during last night's performance at Raymond James Stadium. Dennis Anderson, creator, team owner, and driver of Gravedigger, was hurt.
These legends gave us 8 seasons of sweet chaos. From a monster truck jumping over a flying aircraft to insane pranks that made us question what the show was really about. The Diesel brothers gave us some of the wildest and most entertaining builds on television. Yet behind the cameras, they were also fighting secret battles.
Ideally, it would be nice to go in one time to the doctor or for one scan.
From tragic losses to real injuries and a legal fight that ended in an arrest.
Yes, I was arrested and just spent 3 days locked up in solitary confinement at a maximum security wing of the Salt Lake County Jail.
Why did they lead such difficult lives behind the cameras? And what events led up to them? These are the painful stories of the legends behind Diesel Brothers. Mikall Worland. Mikall Worland spent more than 20 years serving as a police officer in Utah. Then he left law enforcement to help run the Diesel seller's shop behind every episode of Diesel Brothers. Then, in September 2018, what should have been a normal day with his family ended in tragedy. He drowned while swimming at Flaming Gorge. He was just 47 years old, leaving behind 4 children and grieving well-wishers. The story leading to this point was unbelievable. Long before television, Worland built a career in law enforcement. He served with the University of Utah Police Department, the South Salt Lake Police Department, and later the Unified Police Department. He also worked alongside SWAT and the DEA during parts of his career. Fellow officers remembered him as the kind of person you always wanted beside you in a dangerous situation, the kind that always had your back. And that kindness showed outside police work as well. In 2015, Worland helped surprise an 84-year-old Navy veteran with a new motorized wheelchair after his car had been stolen. The moment became local news. Worland admitted the experience brought him to tears because he had never seen so many strangers come together to help someone in need. A couple of years later, his friend Dave Heavy D. Sparks asked him to retire from policing and help manage diesel sellers full-time. Worland became the person who kept the entire shop running. He organized employees, handled the daily schedule, cleaned the shop at night, and often stayed until 3 or 4 in the morning, making sure everything was ready for the next day. Diesel Dave later said he was the reason the business ran so smoothly. But sadly, tragedy was about to strike. On September 2nd, 2018, everything changed. While swimming with friends and family at Cedar Springs Marina in Flaming Gorge, Worland was found unresponsive in the water. He passed away at 47, leaving behind 4 children. Yet for the show, this tragedy would be just one out of several. Tanner Godfrey. At 18, he was the one in his extreme sports family who never crashed. Then a motocross wreck broke his back, dislocated a vertebra, and left him paralyzed from the chest down. This was a man who grew up around extreme sports. His uncle, Greg Godfrey, helped start Nitro Circus with Travis Pastrana. Tanner always believed he would never be the one to crash. Then, in 2007, everything changed. Just after high school, he was racing motocross when his back tire hit a deep hole. At almost 50 miles per hour, he flew over the handlebars and slammed headfirst into the ground. The crash broke 8 ribs, shattered part of his spine, and left him with serious back injuries. At first, he could still feel his legs. Then, about 20 minutes later, the feeling in his left leg began to disappear. By the next morning, he woke up paralyzed from the chest down. Yet it turned out the cause was not what he expected. Doctors told him the crash itself did not cause the paralysis. Rather, it was swelling in his spinal cord over the next few hours. The doctors said he was very lucky to be alive. His neck muscles, built thick from years of playing football and wrestling, were the single factor that saved his life. But the worst was yet to come. As it was later revealed, the hardest moment for Todd came 2 weeks later, when hospital staff measured him for a wheelchair. That was when he finally understood that his life had changed forever. Maybe for good. But Tanner refused to quit. During rehab, he slowly learned to move again. He went from a wheelchair to a walker and then to canes. He went so far as to build a homemade driving stick with his grandfather so he could race UTVs again, using a tent pole, duct tape, and a water bottle. Instead of walking away from motorsports, he pushed even harder. He became a 2-time UTV long jump world record holder. Then, in 2019, he appeared on Diesel Brothers, Monster Jump Live, and jumped 240 feet on live TV, winning back his world record. Doctors said he'd never walk again, but Tanner famously told them that since he now walks slow, he has to at least drive fast. Todd LeDuc. His favorite stunt once ripped the hood clean off his own truck after a huge landing. Yet he kept going, doing it over and over again. Sadly, that kind of driving came at a price. Years of massive jumps slowly destroyed his back, and an engine exploded in the middle of the stunt, leading to a hard landing that locked up his truck. He was never a full-time cast member, but few people risked more for the show than he did. His father was Kurt LeDuc, and as the son of an off-road racing legend, Todd grew up around fast trucks and dangerous jumps. By 2011, he had joined Monster Jam as a rookie driver, and it didn't take long for fans to notice he was willing to try stunts that most drivers would never even attempt. His biggest moment came at Monster Jam World Finals 15. Todd raced toward the biggest jump on the track and launched his truck so far that it stayed in the air for 4 full seconds. When he landed, the hood flew off, the flagpole snapped away, and parts of the truck broke loose. Somehow he kept driving, still won the freestyle championship, and famously called it the LeDuc Leap. It gained so much respect that drivers still try to copy it over a decade later, knowing it can destroy a truck the second it lands. But all that wouldn't last forever. In 2019, Todd appeared on Diesel Brothers, Monster Jump Live, and landed a forward-moving backflip on national TV. The stunt worked, but the landing damaged the truck's rear drivetrain, showing just how little room for error existed. Still, the next year, he tried something even more dangerous, the world's first forward-moving double backflip. His engine exploded during the attempt, forcing him to settle for a single flip. His crew rebuilt the engine in less than an hour so he could try that same night again. Over more than 150 Monster Jam events, Todd won 3 World Finals championships and 3 Stadium Series titles. But every huge jump came with another hard landing. Years of crashing back to Earth left him with constant back pain. By 2025, the damage had become too much, and he was forced to leave for good, never seen in public from that lens. Yet, the expenses came nowhere close to what we're about to show you. Heavy D? This was the heavy story most fans never expected. For nearly 10 years, Heavy D fought a federal lawsuit that started with a claim of $114 million. The fines later dropped, but they still grew to more than $900,000. Then, in October 2025, federal marshals showed up at his home, arrested him, and took one of reality TV's biggest stars to jail. What happened next was the strangest of all. But before that, how did he get to this point? The case started back in 2016, when a Utah environmental group sued the Diesel Brothers. They claimed the crew had broken the Clean Air Act by removing emissions equipment from diesel trucks so they could blow thick black smoke for videos, a stunt known as rolling coal. The group said the violations happened over and over again. By 2018, a federal judge ordered the team to stop modifying trucks that way. But the legal fight was far from over. In 2020, another judge ruled that Heavy D and others had broken the Clean Air Act hundreds of times and had also ignored the earlier court order. Together, they were ordered to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines. The case only got worse. Appeals added even more legal costs, pushing the total amount owed to well over $900. Courts also described some of the violations as flagrant misconduct. Heavy D argued the case had gone far beyond clean air and had turned into a personal attack. He said the legal fees had become even larger than the original penalties. Yet the situation got worse in 2025. Heavy D later revealed that a judge had tried to stop a liquidation sale at his Utah business. The sale later moved forward, but the legal fight did not. On October 2nd, a federal judge issued a warrant for his arrest after ruling he still had not paid $850,000 that was owed. 5 days passed, and federal marshals arrested him. They booked him into the Salt Lake County Jail, but had him released soon afterwards. To this day, many believe the arrest crossed a line that could never be undone. But the environmental group stood by the court's decisions, saying the rulings had already found repeated violations. Chuck Norris. Fans knew Chuck Norris as the man nothing could stop. But in 2017, 2 heart attacks nearly took his life. And just days after celebrating his 86th birthday, Chuck Norris tragically passed away. This was how it happened. When Chuck Norris appeared on Diesel Brothers, fans saw exactly what they expected. Just as he was on the big screen, he was a tough action star making a fun guest appearance on the show. But behind that famous image was a man whose body had already been through far more than most people knew. In 2017, Norris suffered 2 heart attacks on the same day. The emergency was so serious that he had to be rushed more than 240 miles to a hospital for treatment. Many people thought it could have been the end. Instead, he recovered, went back to training, and kept working. That relentless image had become legendary, making him the star of countless internet jokes about being unbeatable despite his age. People joked that nothing could hurt him. Even in his 80s, he still looked unstoppable. But then, on March 10, 2026, Norris celebrated his 86th birthday by posting a video of himself boxing with a trainer. He smiled, moved around the ring, and looked healthy. It was then that he made his famous statement, "I don't age. I level up."
I don't age. I level up.
He thanked fans for another year of good health and said he was grateful to keep doing what he loved. But just 9 days later, everything changed. On March 19, 2026, Chuck Norris suffered a sudden medical emergency while in Kauai, Hawaii. He was rushed to the hospital but did not survive. He was 86 years old. His family chose not to reveal the exact cause of his passing, asking for privacy as they mourned. For millions of fans, the news was hard to believe. Just days earlier, they had watched him training like a man decades younger. After surviving 2 heart attacks years before, many believed Chuck Norris would always find a way to keep going. But the man's final days became a grim reminder that behind every larger-than-life legend is still a human being. Gina Norris. As for Chuck's wife, Gina, what should have been a routine MRI quickly turned into a nightmare. Just days after getting a contrast dye injection, Gina Norris began losing her memory, struggling to breathe, and watching her health fall apart. What followed was a $2 million medical battle and a lawsuit that shocked everyone. As we'll see, It was a painful road leading to this point. Fans knew Chuck Norris as the man who never seemed to lose. But while he was making TV appearances and smiling for cameras, his wife, Gina Norris, was fighting a health crisis that almost took her life. In late 2012, Gina went in for a routine MRI scan. As part of the test, doctors used a gadolinium-based contrast dye, something used in millions of MRI scans around the world every year. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Then, just a few days later, everything changed for the worse. Gina Norris said her body felt like it was burning from the inside. Her heart raced. She shook constantly. Before long, she struggled to think clearly, remember simple things, or even finish a sentence. Her muscles became so weak that Chuck later remembered standing in the hospital, believing she was dying right in front of him. Her legal team later said she was suffering from gadolinium deposition disease, a condition they believed was caused by the contrast dye staying inside her body. They said it led to memory problems, long-term pain, breathing issues, and damage to other parts of her body. There was no approved treatment for the condition, so the family had no choice but to look elsewhere for help. Chuck and Gina spent years trying different treatments, including chelation therapy and stem cell therapy. They later said the medical bills added up to almost $2 million. In 2017, the couple filed a lawsuit against 11 companies involved in making and selling gadolinium contrast agents, asking for more than $10 million in damages. Instead of keeping the fight private, they spoke openly on national TV, hoping to bring attention to other patients who had suffered similar problems. Even while suing the companies, Gina made it clear she was not against MRI scans themselves. She said they save countless lives and should continue to be used. Her goal, she explained, was to make people more aware of the possible risks. Over the next few years, health regulators in several countries began placing tighter limits on some gadolinium contrast agents. Unfortunately, in 2022, the lawsuit against one of the companies ended without a settlement, with both sides paying their own legal costs. The next one was a deadly accident that ended a career. Dennis Anderson. He built Gravedigger from the ground up and became one of Monster Jam's biggest legends by taking bigger risks than anyone else. Fans even called him One Run Anderson because he crashed so often. Then, in 2017, one of those risks ended with his truck flipping upside down in front of thousands of shocked fans. The road to this accident was just as painful, but was also marked by many victories. In 1987, he shocked the sport by beating Bigfoot, even though his team had far less money. Fans even gave him the nickname One Run Anderson because his hard-driving style often ended in crashes. In 2007, during Gravedigger's 25th anniversary tour, Dennis was badly hurt in the first event of the season. The injury ended his work and forced his own son to take over behind the wheel. Dennis eventually came back, but his biggest crash was still ahead. In January 2017, during a live Monster Jam show in Tampa, he attempted a flip that went horribly wrong. Gravedigger landed upside down as paramedics rushed onto the track, while thousands of shocked fans, including children, watched in silence. His son later told fans that Dennis was recovering, adding that his father was more worried about disappointing the crowd than about himself. Dennis never fully returned to competition after that crash. Later that year, he retired from driving, ending a career built on the risks that had made him a legend. Adam Anderson. At 21 years old, Adam Anderson would become the youngest freestyle world champion in Monster Jam history. But after that win, everything seemed to go wrong. 3 straight world finals ended in crashes, injuries, and missed events. Then, he watched his own father suffer the worst crash of his career. After that, Adam took over driving the truck. He was only in his early 20s, but he quickly proved himself by winning freestyle events across the country. 1 year later, Adam made history by becoming the youngest driver ever to win the Monster Jam World Finals Freestyle Championship at 22, a record that still stands today. But unfortunately for Adam, that huge win would be followed by years of bad luck. Fans even called it the World Finals curse. At one event, Adam crashed after hitting a barrier. At another, he hit a tree so hard that he was injured and had to pull out of freestyle, with another driver taking his place. Then, in 2017, Adam watched his own father suffer the worst crash of his career when Gravedigger flipped upside down during a live show in Tampa. Adam kept racing and would later win more championships, but his story proved that being born into a legend doesn't protect you from crashes, pressure, or heartbreak. It only meant he'd have to survive all three. Katon Hoskins. Long before Diesel Brothers made Katon Hoskins famous, he was sitting in a jail cell instead of a garage. Around that same time, he also lost his father. The funny, fitness-loving guy fans saw on TV had already hit rock bottom more than once and somehow fought his way back before the cameras ever showed up. As we'll see, though, not every sad story ends up in the news. Katon Hoskins, better known to fans as the Muscle, had been friends with Diesel Dave since the 8th grade, years before Diesel Brothers ever existed. But while fans watched him build trucks on TV, his personal life was falling apart behind the scenes. At some point, Katon and his wife, Jenny, who share 2 daughters, went through a divorce. Unlike the lawsuits and accidents we've covered so far, this never became a public story. But some fear the worst may have happened to him. Redbeard's disappearance. Around Season 5 in 2019, Joshua Redbeard Stewart, one of the 4 original Diesel brothers and the company's longtime money man, suddenly disappeared from the show. There was no goodbye episode or big major announcement. One day, he was there and gone by the next. Heavy D and Diesel Dave never gave fans a clear answer on camera. Fans noticed almost right away. Questions filled social media, and many believed Redbeard had quit the company for good. After helping build Diesel Cellars from a small garage into a nationwide business with its own TV show, it looked like he had simply walked away. But, officially, that wasn't what actually happened, at least from the reports. They tell us that while Redbeard disappeared from the cameras, he never truly left the business. Discovery never removed him from the show's cast page, and court records from the same time still listed him as a co-defendant with Heavy D in the long-running Clean Air Act lawsuit. That meant he was still deeply involved behind the scenes, even if viewers never saw him. The truth did not become clear until the show's 8th and final season ended in December 2022. Redbeard had been there the entire time. He simply stepped away from the spotlight while continuing to handle the financial side of the company. As the business fought lawsuits, appeals, and growing legal bills, he remained one of the key people keeping everything together. To fans, it looked like one of the show's biggest stars had vanished without a trace. In reality, Redbeard never disappeared from Diesel Brothers at all. He only disappeared from the cameras. There are many other tragedies associated with the show, but we'd love to hear them from you in the comments below. If any of these stories surprised you, let us know as well. Subscribe and hit the notification bell for more stories behind the shows you grew up watching. Now, click on the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it. Until next time, as always, take care.